Well, it's time for the last conversation we're going to have with Willie Hallihan this year, because, of course, New Year's Eve is Monday and New Year's Day is Tuesday. But what started out quite a while ago with NASCAR Dave has developed into not only a feature that we air here on Sunday in the Country, but also during the week as well, and that is featuring his website, Sporting a Cause, which really highlights sporting events, anything that's sporting related, that also turns into a fundraiser for many different things. It may be the sport that it is or for something else. And Willie's turned it into something that's really kind of cool and important and stands out in not only our region, but probably within 100 miles radius, sportingacause.com. Willie, nice to speak to you again today, and Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you, Marshall. Same to you. I have to say, you gave me a start there for a second. This is Willie's last, and then you added for this year. I know, phew, thanks.
Well, no, yeah, it's hard to believe a year's gone by.
Oh, I know it.
And there's still lots of stuff to talk about.
There is. Today, this afternoon, the Housatonic varsity hockey team is playing against the alumni and others over at Hotchkiss School for the benefit of a family who lost a loved one recently. It's from 3 to 5:30 over at the Hotchkiss rink. It's a beautiful facility. And Housatonic is, we call it Hoosie Hockey, but it's actually 4 different schools that make up the Hoosie Hockey team these days. The demographics are changing, and you have to go outside your own school now for some sports. But anyway, if you're not a football fan, you're not watching football today, and you want to do something different, go over to the Hotchkiss rink and watch a good caliber of hockey being played. They're playing 3 games. If they have enough alumni, and often they do, there'll be 2 different teams that each play the Hoosie varsity, and then they'll play each other for a 3rd game. So there's plenty of hockey to see. They're selling food and have raffles and everything. It's a good cause. It always is.
And if you haven't been over to see the Hotchkiss hockey site, like everything else Hotchkiss does, it really is amazing with their double rinks and the way it's set up.
I know.
It really and there's plenty of parking, and it's very easy access. It's handicapped accessible. We're very lucky around here. The hockey rinks that you have time to rent ice on, which, by the way, that's a course of another matter, are really, really, really well done for spectators.
Yeah, they really are. The one over at Salisbury School, I mean, they're all world class, and in each school, hockey is a big deal in all the private schools. But I remember when the Salisbury School one was being built, I talked to the guy who's a union guy. He goes around the country and maybe the world installing the cooling systems when they're built. He said that at that point, the Salisbury rink was as good as any professional rink anywhere in the world. So they're all world class,
yes.
And the facilities, as you said, the Mars Center over at Hotchkiss, the swimming pools, the hockey rinks. You can go over there and walk indoors if you want. It's just a wonderful facility. Anyway, that's this afternoon from 3 to 5:30, and tomorrow, Monday, the Salisbury Winter Sports Junior Ski Jump Camp, which was postponed from this past Friday and Saturday. It's postponed to tomorrow and Tuesday. Is being held. It was postponed because of the weather, and the snow. Kenny, I talked to Kenny yesterday, and the snow on the 20-meter jump where the youngsters learn is fine, and it's all go. It's a $50 charge for 2 days. The youngsters bring their own skis. It helps if they've had some downhill skiing experience, so they have their own skis and boots, and they need a helmet as well. No poles necessary. And you don't even have to be a good downhill skier because you don't have to turn. You know, one of the things when you learn to downhill ski is you learn to turn first. Well, ski jumping is just straight. You know, so you don't have to be a great skier, but you have to have your skis. And for the $50, you get 2 days of training with our jumping coach Ariel Picton, who's been jumping for much of her life. She jumps for SWASA, and she's great with the kids. And one thing I want to make note of is if for some reason or other your child can't make it to this camp because of scheduling or because we postponed it. It doesn't matter. Ariel wants everybody to know that after this 2-day camp, we'll be jumping 2 or 3 afternoon evenings during the week and 1 weekend day for the rest of the winter. So if you miss the camp, it doesn't matter. You can still come and participate, and Ariel encourages everybody who wants to do just that.
Yeah, I think it's great when you look at the facilities you have. You're right. You don't even have to ski. You don't even have to know how to stop, because I think that's the great way that you graduate these kids into becoming champions and to going out and competing, because you have really 3 different types of levels of jumps there.
Yeah.
That when you graduate from one to the next, it's an easy graduation. Yeah, it might be a little different from that second graduation to the big jump, but by that time they've jumped enough and they've gotten enough air, I think, where the confidence level has increased so much.
Yeah, and actually they don't have to make that jump because the transition goes from our 20, the beginning hill, to the 30, which is the next step, and then they can go. And by this time they've probably been traveling to Lake Placid anyway for competitions, but Lake Placid has a 48-meter jump, so that cuts the difference between the 30 and our big one. So it's they can have a regular progression from one to the other without having to get outside their comfort zone too much.
And that's what's great, because they start so young, and when you see them competing, even in the Olympics, they're young. I mean, it really is a compressed sport.
It is, and during Jump Fest in February, you'll see kids as young as 12 jumping off the big hill. I mean, we start at 7, by the way. I didn't mention that. We accept kids from 7 on up. Seems to be the ideal age, and if you have a particularly precocious child, a little younger, we'll talk about it. Maybe every child's different at that age. Some are more coordinated than others, or whatever the other variables are. But typically, age 7 is a good time to start. They're fearless, and anyway, it's a wonderful sport for kids who don't necessarily fit into team sports. It's a nice alternative, and it definitely builds confidence for those who have started the program and kept with it for a few years. As you can well imagine, imagine the confidence you have to have in yourself to be able to do this and then progress up to the bigger hills. And you can tell when you talk to kids from around the East who come to jump at Jump Fest. They carry themselves a little differently than their average peer of their age. They speak differently. They speak with more confidence. They seem more comfortable around adults because of the experiences they've had. So, and we're proud of that. People come back. They're adults now, and maybe in the 30s, 40s, or even older, and speak about what ski jumping has meant to them in their lives, how it's helped guide them in whatever their endeavors have been. So, anyway, not to get too philosophical, but for some it's just a sport. It's just something to do in the winter. For some, it means more down the road. But anyway, that's going on tomorrow and Tuesday, the December 31st and January 1st. $50 a person, and 2 days of instruction, lunch both days, a T-shirt, and a lot of fun.
What time does it start in the morning?
9.
Okay.
Yep.
And what it's interesting talking to people who ski jump. And I noticed, and it thought in my mind, you think I was crazy, that ski jumping is a lot like golfing. Is that, yes, you're a competitor in a sense with all the people that are golfing and with all the people that are jumping, but really you're competing against the hill. You're trying to do your best on the hill. Yes,
you are. You're competing against yourself.
Yeah.
So, like other individual sports, teamwork is very important. Don't get me wrong. I think that's team building is a great thing for any person. But if you want to test yourself, this is the way to do it. And for those who think, our pictures, the pictures we put on our posters and so forth don't really help. I mean, it looks, when we take a picture, you see this jumper seemingly 100 feet in the air. You don't see the ground underneath them. All you see is them and the trees out in front of them. But they're never really that far off the ground. They jump off the jump and they get over the little knoll, and then they're never more than 2 or 3 feet off the ground as they get closer and closer to landing. So, what looks more like paragliding in our posters, it really isn't that bad at all. So I'd encourage anybody who has a notion to try it to come.
All right, and once again, that is tomorrow and on New Year's Day. And by the way, it's all weather permitting. If something happens, of course, there'll be announcements and everything like that.
That's right. Yep. And by the way, Marshall, thank you so much. The radio is just the greatest medium for when you have last-minute changes like we did with this. You got the word out on the radio. You had it on Facebook, and we really appreciate it.
All right, so that is tomorrow and the 1st. So where do we go from here?
Well, also on New Year's Day is the Milton Resolution Run. It's in its 29th year, I think. It's a 5-mile race over in Milton, Connecticut. It's part of the township of Litchfield, and that starts the new year. January is kind of lean in terms of events, but near the end of January, there's another Bonspiel. That's the name for the curling competitions, and that's up at the North Fork Curling Club. And then, in midwinter, there's a hockey tournament up at Berkshire School. There's Jump Fest, of course, SWASA's 3-day Eastern Ski Jumping Championships. There's another right around Valentine's Day. There's a Sweetheart Run in Litchfield. There's a fishing derby. The Northwest Connecticut Rod and Gun Club gets gears up again. They have a fishing derby, and they start their ham shoots, which is the spring version of their turkey shoots in the fall. They're shooting the targets, and you can win hams and cash and so forth. It's a big fundraiser. It's several weeks long. And again, when winter is just about worn everybody out, there's a retro dodgeball tournament in Litchfield, a very ingenious fundraiser that these people devised. In a town where there's so many running events, you couldn't possibly start another one as a fundraiser. They came up with this idea to have a retro dodgeball tournament where people wear clothes from the 70s, and it's a great time. It's entertaining to watch and so forth. And there's also it's called the Ferncliff Fat Fest, and it sounds like overweight people doing something, but the fat refers to this niche in bicycling where they bicycle with really, really big tires. I mean, more so than the one I had when I was a kid. I had a 80-pound roll fast with white wall tires. I thought they were huge, but these are big, really big, and they're meant for riding in the snow or even in sand on a beach and so forth. So that's coming up. So there's a lot coming up. We have a slight slowdown because of in the early winter, but then it picks up again. There'll be plenty to do, and I'll be talking about it.
Well, I make a resolution not to 5-mile run in Milton on the first. I'm
with you, Marshall.
Many years ago, I told Ed Taberski, the athletic teacher at Housatonic Valley Regional High School back in the late 60s and early 70s. I'm sorry, Mr. Taberski, I've never found something scary enough to run from or good enough to run to. That's what we used to have to take the presidential fitness test, and you had to do a 660 in a certain amount of time.
Yeah. I remember that, the 600-yard run. It was brutal.
And I had to do it over several times because Ed would not send anything in that didn't meet. And so I used to have to do it several times to get my time under.
Well, it built character, didn't it?
It did, and it built a friendship with Ed because he realized I was not an athlete.
Yeah. He's a good man. Still going strong, too, by the way.
Absolutely. Yep. I speak to him on Facebook quite a bit, as a matter of fact. All right, Willie, we'll have a happy New Year, and we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you, Marshall. You do the same. Take care.
Willie Hallihan, Sporting a Cause here on Robin Hood Radio, sportingacause.com.